Hello, welcome to my channel StudyMate. Today we're going to talk about how to learn a language easier using the natural approach method, which I didn't really know I was using. I learned two languages by myself, which were English and Portuguese, and I didn't really know that I was using the natural approach method by myself. But then I got to know about this method and I was like, oh, that's the method I use actually. So it made language learning much easier for me. And I want to share it with you guys that are going to learn a language and are interested in knowing how to do it in a simpler way, not studying with books or not studying heavy grammar, to learn a language in a much simpler and natural way. So if you're interested, keep watching. This language learning method was created in 1983. It published in a book called The Natural Approach, Language Acquisition in the Classroom. And it was created by two developers, which were Stephen Krashen and Tracy Terrell. And they were teachers, they were Spanish teachers. They were teaching Spanish as a second language. And they developed this method around in the late 70s and early 80s. And they published the book, as I told you guys, in 1983. What the natural approach does, basically, is that it teaches a language heavily focusing on comprehensible input. What do we mean by comprehensible input? For you to be able to learn vocabulary and learn things through a clear example of that. Like if I tell you in Spanish this, it's agua. And you can see what I'm talking about. You can clearly see what I mean. Or if I show you my furniture, you can clearly see this is the couch. And it helps the comprehension and it makes it much easier because you have what you're learning in front of you, so you can relate things and it's easier for you to learn that way. It heavily focuses on understanding. So the natural approach doesn't force you to speak from day one. The natural approach rather tells you to learn and try to understand the language and how it works before you start speaking. So you first get to interact with the language, to familiarize with the language before you actually get to speak it. And this is related to the stages in language acquisition of the natural approach, which are comprehension, the first stage I told you guys, in which you familiarize with the language, you consume content in the language, or you consume things on comprehensible input, so you learn the basics of the language, and you get to familiarize and understand how the language works and learn more vocabulary, etc. The second stage in language acquisition of this theory, of this method, it's the early speech, in which after you have been interacting with the language for some time, you start producing your first words and your first phrases, and you start speaking slowly. And then the third stage is a speech emergence, in which you've been interacting with the language for much longer, and you start to speak more fluently, and you start to develop your speech much more. The natural method focuses more on comprehensible input, as I told you guys, learning the language in a low-stress situation, a slow speech production, so you're not forced or you're not highly encouraged to speak the language from day one. You're rather taking in the comprehensible input and interacting with the language before you start to speak, which you do later on. And communication in the end. And communication is key because you don't just have to understand the language, you have to speak it as well. So this method focuses a lot on communication. So we learn how to express our feelings, our feelings, things we do, routines, opinions, even if we make mistakes. The natural method is not keen on grammar. Grammar is not something that is actively taught or something that you want to actively be learning on the natural method. Also, error correction, it's not an important thing. Like, on this method, what is wanted is for the person to speak and comprehend what they're saying and how the language works, even if there are mistakes, because mistakes are a natural part of learning a language. Like children, a 4-year-old child, they speak, but they have lots of mistakes or mispronunciations, but that's absolutely normal, and it changes through time. And as you get more experienced in the language, it becomes much easier to you, and you don't make as much mistakes, or it starts feeling more natural to speak the language. And another thing this method is not keen on is fast speech production, as I told you guys. It doesn't encourage the person to speak from day one. It rather encourages the person to understand and comprehend the language, and then to slowly start speaking and interacting in this language. So guys, I use this method to learn the two languages that I learned, which are English, which I'm speaking now, and Portuguese, which I also learned. And I will tell you guys how I did it, because I didn't take classes, I didn't have a teacher, it was all by myself. But I was pretty much using this method to learn the languages. And as it said, there's a comprehension stage. And in the comprehension stage, basically, when I started to learn the language, I started familiarizing myself with the language. Like, I started watching TV in that language. I started finding YouTubers I found interesting in that language, even if I didn't understand it. Like, sometimes I had translated subtitles, and then I switched to subtitles in English, for example, to learn the language. And I was on that for a while, like for more than 3 months. I was like consuming a lot of content in that language for hours and hours. And progressively, I got to relate. The comprehensible input was working. I got to understand way more as months progressed. And then I started the early speech production stage. And I started speaking. I didn't have someone to speak with, so I started speaking by myself. And so I was using words I was learning, and speaking to myself in the language I was learning, or recording audios, or even videos, like speaking the language so that I could use the words I was learning. And then afterwards, I started to talk to people online in the language, and I had a lot of words I knew. I had a good vocabulary, a decent vocabulary, so I could understand what people were telling me. Or if I didn't understand, I will just ask a question. Or a lot of the times I was making mistakes, but that was okay. And something that also worked for me is to ask the person, am I doing this right or wrong? But most of the times, what I was doing is that I was talking to someone who's a native speaker, and I was copying the way they speak, because if they're a native speaker, it's supposed that they know how to speak in their language. So I was just copying them on the way they were saying things, and it really worked for me. And as time progressed, I got more fluent. So interact with the language in your daily life. It has to become a part of your daily life, and you need to consume content in that language for hours. And you need to speak, even if you make mistakes. If you make mistakes, it's not important. You don't have to be shy. You need to speak. And also, something I recommend you, which worked for me, is to do the things you like in the language. For me, I like documentaries. So I started to watch documentaries in English and blogs, which I like. And it really helped me, because I was enjoying it, and I was doing something that I already used to do in my daily life learning the language, but in the language I was learning. And I was enjoying it, and it really helped me to learn the language. And the other thing is, even after you learn the language, never stop using it. Like after you learned it, it's your language, and it needs to be part of your daily life every single day so you don't forget. And so you keep learning new things, because we don't know every single word, even in our native languages. So you need to keep using it, keep learning daily, so that you will be more and more fluent every single day. Something else I have to say is, don't believe ads, don't believe the people selling you curses for learning languages, like learn English in 3 months or learn any language in 3 months. No, it will not happen. It's impossible. In my experience, in 3 months, you're still like in the comprehensible input stage. Like you're still trying to understand the language, learning basic vocabulary. Like in 3 months, you shouldn't even be speaking that much. You would like be in the early stage production, and you will understand a lot of things, but you are not going to be fluent in 3 months. Like you will be a beginner in 3 months. But learning a language, it depends on how constant you are. Like if you if you're learning this language for a lot of hours a day, every single day, you will be really good at it in a year. I'm not telling you you will be a C2 plus, but you will be really good at it, and you will be able to speak it really well if you practice it. So take that into account when you're learning a language. If you like this video, if you found it useful, don't forget to like, share it, and subscribe to my channel, where we will talk about a lot of things on learning. Like we will have blogs of when I'm in college. We will have videos like this, sitting down and talking videos where we talk about my learning experiences or methods I've used to learn languages or anything at all. Or we will even have blogs of me doing my homework, studying, like the videos I published recently. So if you're interested in that, thank you for interacting with my channel. Subscribe and be welcome to our community of people that love to learn and students. So it's nice to have you here. Hope to see you soon in my next video. Bye bye.